Now, I'd like to just explain to you how this is going to work. We don't ask questions. They don't know what the questions are. So we look at this forum. It's what's being used all over Santa Fe County. And it's fair. They're clueless as to questions. And that's what we want. We want honesty and we want integrity. So in David Bacon's hat are all of your names. When your name is called, you get 1 minute to ask that question. Don't you worry, you're going to get the 30-second sign from Cheryl Ford too. And then each one will be asked the same question with 2 minutes. So there's no dancing around. When each one has to answer that question, they'll answer it. And this is your forum. It's not any one ward. So David, you want to yank out a name?
Yeah. So I'm going to let Cheryl pick the first one name out of the hat. Is that okay? March Dunstan.
Again? I did that last time.
You won.
It's a miracle. We always do that.
This is kind of in the weeds. It happened for me in the last few days. I was reading about that bill that you got passed in the legislature, and then the governor vetoed it, and she had her own malarkey. I couldn't understand what her rationale was. I couldn't understand it. I'm asking for each of you, if you would please go into the weeds and explain to me why yours was so great, and why was she objecting, and how can we move these good gun bills past, forward, get them passed. Thank you.
Oh, you want me to start off first? I don't know what order you want us in, but since your question's to me, Mark. Yes, I got to tell you, I'm very proud of the fact that for the very first time we passed gun control legislation and put it on the governor's desk. And the governor, as a prosecutor, as a woman, should have appreciated that a bill targeted to domestic violence and the murders and the violence that happens with guns and domestic violence, she should have been a champion of that bill. And I worked hard to persuade her, and I couldn't do it. But I was able to persuade my House and Senate colleagues to do something that was hard, candidly. And I want you to understand, that's what I'm about. I'm not afraid of taking on the NRA. Peter, you're right, this is about money. This entire process is about money, and politicians are cowed by that. And Peter will tell you, we had other bills in the legislative session on guns that went way quickly and died in committees. I'm not afraid of a challenge. I'm not afraid of the NRA. I'm not afraid of big money. I do what I believe is right. I've got 3 daughters, and I cannot imagine a governor who's a woman vetoing a bill that would have compelled judges to take away guns of people that are convicted or accused of domestic violence. And so the governor's malarkey, to use your word, is that judges can already do this. And she's right, judges can already do this, but they don't. My bill would have compelled them to do it, and I think that's a message from New Mexicans, men and women, and a father and as a man, to say we're not going to put up with gun violence, and we need to be able to pass legislation to bring reasonable controls on guns. And I'm proud to be able to say I did it, and I'll do it again, and I'll sign it.
Can anybody hear me? Yeah. So gun control is very important. And we believe that, one, we should be doing background checks across the board. And New Mexico does a pretty good job of that. We got to stop those loopholes. And as governor, we'll stop the loopholes. We also have to create legislation that about automatic weapons, about the weapons that continue to kill mass murder. You know, I was watching a news program the other day, and I'm going to blank out his name, but the developer of the semi-automatic weapons is appalled that we can literally go buy these automatic weapons in sporting goods stores, at gun shows, and we know what they can do. Those weapons were designed for military advancement and to protect our country. So as governor, I will do everything I can to sign any kind of bill the legislature puts in front of me about gun control and creating and stopping loopholes at shows, and also getting the automatic weapons off our street, because there's way too many. So that's where that's where our campaign stands.
Thank you. So, of course, I'm on board with everything they said. I want to look at the big picture, because that's the way I kind of want to do politics, is from the big picture on down, not the specifics. New Mexico has an F rating on our gun laws, because we have almost none. And it's a definite proven correlation that lack of laws increases more deaths. And it's not just the big high-profile deaths like the shooting in Clovis. It's the deaths of children, the deaths of spouses. And that's what we need to pay attention. Now, I need to tell you, I do not want to live in a state where only the police own guns. I don't want to live there, okay? But at the same time, if you use the analogy of the auto industry, they fought regulation to make cars safer. They fought regulation to require drivers to be educated and to pass tests. And we need to do the same thing with guns. Safer and educated. And those are the kinds of laws we need. And it just makes sense. The Constitution, the Second Amendment, the first words of it, a well-regulated militia. You know, there's that word regulation. All right, so what's that well-regulation going to look like? And that, of course, is similar to the auto industry. Safety, training. Let's look at what an assault rifle is for. The word assault is in the title. It's not for hunting. So those are the kinds of things we need to be regulating. So I just want to tell you there's a bigger picture. And again, follow the money and not just the money of the NRA. Big corporations get politicians to fight over wedge issues so they can screw you while all their tax breaks and stuff go in advance. And that's the money we need to follow as well.
Good evening and thank you. I come from the Pueblo of San Ponso. I live right on the borders of Los Alamos, the DOE laboratories. The question I have tonight is, what are you candidates going to do for the chromium that they have found next to our reservation? It's a very sensitive issue. And also, it doesn't just impact the Pueblo of San Ponso and Los Alamos. It impacts the whole state of New Mexico with the water, and it's moving further east. And that's my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So, the issue you bring up is very important. Thank you. And it's symptomatic of how we roll in New Mexico. We don't put enough bond money up front for people who drill oil wells. So those companies regularly, in their business plan, go broke and then just leave us to clean it up afterwards. And that's just how we roll in New Mexico. We call that economic development. We do the same thing with alcohol. We spend $800 million a year subsidizing. Somebody's got to pay for the car crashes, the ambulances, the police, the court cases, the Medicaid, the detention. We spend $800 million, we get $46 million back, okay? And we call that economic development. And of course, look at who takes money from casinos and breweries and the alcohol industry, and we see how it rolls. So what we need to do with the chromium is we need to have a across the board. You make a mess, you're responsible, period. You make a mess, you're responsible. And the state needs to be aggressive in doing the research to show, would help out with the attorneys, you know, the court cases, the attorney general, to do that if we need to get people to clean up their messes. That is true economic development. So I'm sorry that you're having to suffer that. We all have to suffer it. But we sold our soul for money. That's what we get.
Thank you, Boomer, for the question. It's my understanding, it's not just your area. You can start looking at grants. You can start looking at San Juan. And by the way, most of these issues with the water, our own federal government created in our minings. And now we're just Band-Aiding. That's our strategy, by the way, as our state. Let's Band-Aid our problems. So actually what we need, and I've talked to Martin and Tom Udall about it, we actually need our federal leadership to go work with the federal government to clean that up. We know how important water is. Our first economy was agriculture. And now we live on millions and millions of gallons of water. So as governor, I will make sure our federal government is cleaning our water and recycling our water, because that's our future. That's our economy. At the same time, let's not forget, we have $4 billion of federal funding, and what do we have in the state? Our labs. Our labs and our mining have created a lot of these problems. Let's work together and purify and clean our water, and let's stop band-aiding and try and pump and recycle just to stop moving water. All we're doing right now in our state is we're trying to stop moving the water. We actually need to clean the water. And we have technology today that we can really do that. We need to work with the federal government, we need to work with the private sector and ourselves to clean our water and use that water for productive opportunities. So it's not Boomer, it's not just your area. You can look around our state. And that's what we need to do, that's what we need to clean up, and that's what we're going to do as government.
So your question is so important these days, and the answers you're going to hear from a lot of us tonight are going to sound a lot alike. But the question and the answer is so important because when we talk about the federal government cleaning things up, as suggested here, let's not forget who our president is. Let's not forget who the secretaries in charge of our environment are these days. Right? If we think the federal government is going to lead the cleanup of these disastrous locations and your tragedy, we're kidding ourselves. And that means that we've got to have a governor who's going to fight. And I started my presentation with you tonight to tell you that I'm a lawyer, a long-term champion of the little guy, and I'm prepared for that fight. And I'm prepared to fight Donald Trump. I'm prepared to fight his cabinet secretaries and his environment department. And let me tell you this, the governor can't do it alone, but the governor, as a lawyer with armies of lawyers, can do so. And I'm proud to say that. Some folks sometimes will run down my profession, but I'm proud that I went to law school with Peter Wood. I'm proud that Peter asked me to nominate him as our majority leader in our caucus, because people like Peter and I see the law as an opportunity to do good. And if we look at civil rights, if we look at the laws that I talked to you about here today, getting money from fraud and people that are doing wrong to our state, I believe in the law. And so frankly, it's the law that will be our weapon with the Trump administration. I'm looking forward to that fight. I'm not afraid of that fight, and I'm prepared to take it on. And so your issue of water, I've got to tell you, water is critical to our state. We all recognize that. I'm proud as the chairman of the committee that's in charge of water to have the trust of my colleagues to know the water issues well in our state, to follow the litigation, to follow the lawsuits. And I'll tell you, one of the most important jobs of the next governor is who they appoint as the state engineer. And I'll tell you, Peter and I have been through hours and hours of meetings with the state engineer to try and figure out how Santa Fe and you and El Dorado and this part of the state in particular are going to be impacted by the lawsuit by the state of Texas against New Mexico and by these pollution sites around the state too. You all know better than anyone how critical it is for you to have safe and good water in New Mexico. I've got that background and I've got that expertise, and I've fought that fight and won that fight. Thank you.
I do want to say we had a big picture of Donald Trump that we were going to put on this wall, but Cheryl forgot to bring it, so we're sorry about that. Marge Lazar. Oh, good.
I just wanted to address this. Okay, wanted to address this question to all of you, and that is, what would you do, or what can we do to reverse the impact of the on New Mexico of the decisions that are being made in Washington today?
Sorry.
Well, I guess it's my turn to start. You know, I am not a historian of the Constitution. But the last time I looked, the Constitution says the United States of America. As governor, what we lack here is leadership. As governor, what we lack is, Joseph, you know, some of the things you're talking about are correct. But the folks I'm running against have had opportunities to fix them, and they haven't. Why? Because it's about leadership. Folks, we have many problems here. As your governor, I will rely on Tom Udall and Martin Heinrich, Ben Ray Lujan, to fight Washington. But as your governor, my job is to lead you. My job is to create 225,000 jobs for our kids. My job is to invest in New Mexico and better our education. Create early child development, in-home care, healthcare issues. We are ranked 50th in everything. So as governor, I'm going to work with the federal government with some of our federal funding. But as your governor, it's time we have new ideas. It's time we have leadership. Folks, we continue to elect the same people over and over and over with political backgrounds, and you wonder why we're 50th. So as your governor, I will lead this state and solve our problems by investing in ourselves, because we have $22.6 billion that my competitors don't want to touch. And they keep saying, oh, there's that Apodaca. He's going to raid our funds and spend our money. Well, I want you to know something. Between private and government, we need to invest our money and invest in ourselves. Colorado, 6th largest economy in the world, 2.1% unemployment. Their investment funds, $550 million. New Mexico, highest unemployment, 150,000 lost jobs. 57,000 New Mexicans have left. 50th in education, 50th in job creation. And we sit on $22.6 billion, the third largest funds. I have a proven track record of creating opportunities for people. As your governor, I'm not going to worry about Washington, D.C. I'm going to worry about my children, your children, and the grandchildren, and create job opportunities, educational opportunities, and invest into a job market, an educational market, that we will grow our own economy.
I was hoping with this great turnout tonight, there would be opportunities for us to differ on things, and this is a great opportunity because I differ with Jeff on this issue. I'm not going to ignore your question, and I'm not going to ignore Washington, D.C. I think the governor of New Mexico in particular has a wonderful opportunity to show our country and to show our federal government the beauty of diversity, the beauty of people from different cultures, Native American, Hispanic, different cultures, just different experiences, a community in a state which doesn't need a wall to keep people out, that doesn't need to be kicking out our dreamers and our young people and trying to drive divisions between us based on color or ethnicity or race. And I believe the governor of New Mexico can have a key role in that responsibility. And I've seen governors from other states do that. Governors be heard at the national level. And so I won't be afraid to be heard on national issues. And when you ask what we can do here, I'm never going to fight or forget who the man is that we go to sleep with as our president every night. And I'll look for every opportunity I can to show him that the solution is not in walls or not in deporting people and having our local police act as immigration officials. None of those are what New Mexico is about, and it's not what our beauty is. And we can show our country as a whole by our own example, by the way we embrace all peoples, of all cultures, and all backgrounds, and all languages, and all races in New Mexico, to show that we can live together as a great country, together. And we become the example for our country in doing so. And so I believe we begin there. And I don't believe that we start by ignoring what's happening in Washington, D.C. We don't get ahead in New Mexico or in our country by ignoring the least among us, the people that have the least means, or trying to pander to the wealthy. And let me tell you, I proudly voted against corporate tax cuts, Peter, not only under Governor Martinez, one of the few who voted against Governor Martinez's corporate tax cuts. I did it against Governor Richardson as a Democrat. And that's not easy to do, to break with your own party, to go against the party structure and the leadership. But you know what? I don't believe in helping corporations over the average Americans and working people. And so I'm not going to be afraid as a governor to take on national issues and to take on this president and to show them what we mean as New Mexicans. It matters.
So I was picking on Jeff earlier for being a governor's son. I want to pick on the other two candidates. So here's the deal. You hold these powerful offices and things are going to hell. And I'm tired of it's the other party's fault. We need different folks in office. Now, we can't expect the feds to take care of us. That is very clear. I just got my premium increase. It's gone from $400 a month for health care to $700 a month, okay? If we wait for the feds, we're not going to get anything. This is why we need to take care of ourselves where we can and not fight Washington. That's wasted effort. I support the New Mexico Health Security Campaign, which is single-payer health care for every single New Mexican in the state. Yes. I'm not going to go into the details. You can read on my website, the issue page, and link to them and read the entire plan. For the amount of money we're spending now, we can get the same or better health care that we have, except we include everybody. Okay? I support creating a publicly owned state bank. Yes. The governor of New Jersey, the new governor-elect of New Jersey, Murphy, ran on a state bank platform. We're going to be the third state if he does his way, because I'm pushing hard for this. So we take our trust funds and we invest it in ourselves. The bank acts as a mini Federal Reserve, which which means we start to create money in our state instead of just having money go out there. And I just, I got 30 seconds, so this is hard to say. But the reality is, all these plans about jobs that you hear and stuff like that, those are yesterday's solutions to tomorrow's problems. Automation is killing manufacturing. Airbnb, Uber doesn't own a single bedroom, doesn't own a single taxi. They're the biggest companies in the world of what they do. We got to look to the future. We can't just sit there and say, oh, I'm going to bring all these jobs. It cannot be that way. Hopefully in my next segment of time, I'll explain how we're going to get there.